I have never been more glad to eat my words. Alright, so consider this a follow-up to the previous video that I did talking about Hyrule Warriors Legends. The reason why I took that video down is because, quite frankly, after really not much time at all, I didn't agree with that video anymore. That was sort of just like a knee-jerk response, and I wrote a script for it in one go without any editing whatsoever, and while I will reiterate a couple things from it, for the most part, I'm just retconning that entire thing. It was, for some reason, overly emotional, so we're just going to go back through. I'm going to talk about this completely unscripted, because, well, frankly, it'll be more honest that way. In addition, I'm going to say that the original video was prior to playing the game. It was just done after a couple trailers and everything had just come out. I now have the game, I got a new 3DS, and I have the season pass. I want to be objective in this, instead of purely emotional and overly dramatic and, quite frankly, pretty butthurt. I can admit to that. That's my fault. Entirely on me. So, I will reiterate one point from the original video, mostly because it's gone and I think it's worth mentioning. Something that I said was that with this 3DS port, if it didn't exist, then we wouldn't really lose anything. And now, I do want to specify, because that was just a poorly worded sentence, so I want to clarify what I meant by that. Essentially what I didn't say, the part that I left out, was I was specifically talking about owners of the Wii U version. Saying that, like when I said we as players, I was referring specifically to the people that already had and enjoyed the original. Naturally speaking, and this is something that even during editing I sort of realized, but for some reason didn't fix it. If you don't have the original, but you want to play it and you have a new 3DS, or hell, even the old one, yeah, it does still definitely add something. And I can also say that, well, as I said earlier, I will gladly eat my words on this one. I am thrilled to be wrong, in my own opinion. Believe it or not, I am absolutely thrilled about it. I have played the game on both the original 3DS and on the new 3DS. And I'll talk a little bit about the first one, I'm going to talk a little bit about the original 3DS first, because it's really brief. So I'm just going to say, the performance on that one is pretty bad. I was correct about that. I didn't expect to be wrong. However, it didn't get in the way. Honestly, it really didn't. For how hectic the game can get, and how often, especially on really high-level stages, every now and then, having a little bit of extra time to react can actually help. So even the dropped frame rate really isn't that big of a deal. I also found it was really easy to get used to the way the game looks now. It was really weird that that was a problem for me to begin with, because, I mean, one of my favorite consoles is the N64, and almost all the games on that just look horrible. Like, objectively horrible. I mean, yeah, at the time they looked cool, but nowadays it's just, like, a mess. But that's not a problem, because, you know, that's just what it was like, and the games are still super good. So, I'm really surprised that that bothered me to begin with. I think at that point I was just kind of nitpicking. But I can honestly say that on the original 3DS, the game works passably fine. It definitely doesn't really run that well, but it's not a huge issue. You can pretty easily get past it. On the new 3DS, however, it is buttery smooth. It's perfectly smooth. You almost never see slowdown. And that's surprising. I really didn't expect that to actually be the way it is, but lo and behold, there you go. I recommend leaving the 3D off because, much like in Ocarina of Time and Majora 3D, it does not help. Like, I will play a 3DS game with the 3D on and be perfectly fine, but with these three games in particular, it's really hard to look at. And unfortunately, with the 3D on, the frame rate does drop to below what you would see on the original 3DS with the 3D off. It can be really tough to look at, so pretty much just as a rule, play with the 3D off, unless you aren't at all bothered by the frame rate or the inevitable headache that you'll probably get. If that doesn't bother you, you'll like it perfectly fine with the 3D on, that's up to you. The first thing, though, in terms of the actual game and its additions that I want to talk about, I want to mention the star player. By and large, the best feature, the best addition, is changing characters in the middle of a battle. That one thing makes the game so much more fun. Like, I really cannot describe how awesome it is and how much of an improvement it is. This one simple feature. The biggest appeal about Hyrule Warriors is the huge cast of characters that's still getting bigger somehow. Hashtag Groose is loose. Did I really just say a hashtag in a video? Oh my god. With so many characters, being able to switch between a team in the middle of a stage makes such a big difference because you can cover so much more ground, very obviously. It's a good idea to keep your characters pretty spread out so that you can do pretty much anything. In some of the campaign levels, in the legend mode, they give you both owl statues and about 4 characters, 3 or 4. And with those things, you can get anywhere on the map instantly. And it helps make the levels go faster because you can switch to a different character with different moves. I think that makes a really big difference in just generally increasing the game's potential longevity. Since, as much as I adore the original, I mean, like I said, it was my game of 2014, and I will always stand by that. Playing as just one character when stages can last anywhere from 2 minutes to half an hour, going as just one character, especially if it's someone with a really small moveset like Midna or Tingle or something like that, being able to switch like that makes things a lot more interesting, and it makes bosses a lot more manageable. Bosses are one of the most annoying things in the game because they're completely luck-based. It's just up to the RNG gods whether or not they'll decide to do the one move that will let you actually damage them. So being able to gain these extra bonuses, doing more damage, and just generally taking out quicker, because I've noticed that when you have multiple characters fighting the same boss, in addition to all the bonuses like magic boosts, doing more damage in general, the AI are pretty smart when fighting them. In pretty much any other instance, the AI will use maybe one attack every few seconds, and it's usually not even a very good one. It's usually just their basic first 1 or 2 hits. But against bosses, they'll do their full combo and even some strong attacks against them. So it's really satisfying to see all the characters come together and actually actively fighting against the boss and not just kind of standing there and staring at it like they would normally. In addition, I like that the characters talk to each other. That's a really nice touch. I mean, the characters do that anyway in the game, but that wasn't something that they needed to add in. They'll actually, instead of just saying something to you, the player, and maybe sometimes getting a generic response back, they will actually directly address each other. I mean, they don't use names because they are still just generic placeholder phrases. But it is still nice to actually see the personalities of the characters. As brief as it is, it's cool. Also, nice little Easter egg that they threw in. I love that they did this. This game is so chock full of Easter eggs. I can't believe they're still finding more places to put it. If you have 4 characters, they have a little background on their picture on this touch screen, and on the map they're all different colored arrow. The colors are green, blue, red, and purple. That's good. That is good stuff right there. I love that. If you don't get it, then I'll just put it on screen. It's 4 swords. There you go. That's what it is. And it's really cool. This game is already chock full of stuff like that, like the link between world save point being a checkpoint marker and a little screen when playing in legend mode. All that little stuff. Even more. Great. Love it. Also, the owl statues. That has another interesting little thing about it. The owl statues are a really nice addition. Surprisingly, they do help quite a lot, although you don't get them very often. But when you do get them, it's a really good idea to activate them as soon as possible. Unless it's one that's really out of the way in a place that you'll never really go, then you don't really need to worry about it. I was really confused about one thing, though, when I first used it. When you play the song to warp, it's actually not the Song of Soaring, which was confusing at first. Then I realized it was the Song of Gales from Wind Waker, which does basically the same thing, except you warp to tornadoes instead of the owl statues. But in both, you essentially warp with wind. So it was a really cool combination of these two very similar things. You have the owl statues activated by the Song of Gales. That's nice. I really like that. That's one of the things that I really like about this particular game, both the original on Wii U and the port on 3DS. Because ultimately, when all is said and done, whether you like the port, whether you think it's necessary or not, they are both still Hyrule Warriors, and the games are fan service incarnate in the best possible way. It was very clearly made by Zelda fans for other Zelda fans. So that's part of why I love it so much. As for some of the new specific content, I was a little concerned with what was available at first, because I was always under the impression that they had basically everything. I expected stuff like challenge mode and the boss modes and everything to be out. Frankly, that just kind of makes sense. Unfortunately, as even though Ganon's Fury is my favorite mode, for obvious reasons it's Ganon. That's all there is to it, really. Putting that specifically on 3DS would be an issue. They could make it work, but it would take a lot of trimming down to do, and it would be kind of rough. But in terms of the actual content, like Linkle's story, it's alright. There's really nothing special about it. Honestly, it's pretty disappointing. It was set up pretty well up front that her story is a bit more silly. It's going on in the background. She doesn't really have that much relevance to what's going on, at least none that's immediately apparent. But when you get right down to it, it doesn't really have a progression of events. It's sort of just going from one place to another. And don't get me wrong, the original story was like that too. So it's not like I'm just picking on this one particular story. They were all kind of like that. But in this one particularly, it left some things to be desired, especially the boss of the level. It was really easy. It was too easy, frankly. Some of the levels were pretty creative. I liked the level with Girahim in it. The interesting way they worked in Twilight Midna. The Skull Kid level was pretty good. The last level was kinda and I was really disappointed that we don't actually get to see her meet Link. That doesn't even happen, period. Essentially the last level takes place while Link and Zelda are off putting the Master Sword away after beating Ganon. And there's something going on, Impa's there, a whole bunch of other stuff happens. I guess I could say this is a spoiler-free version there. There's not really much story to be spoiled, but there you go. The boss is nothing new, I'll just let you know that. Don't get your hopes up too much. It's really not that different. It's pretty standard if you played the boss mode on the Wii U. So, not really that big a deal. And Link and Zelda show up while Linkle is still there, but they don't address what happens next at all. It just kind of fades away. I really wish that would have been a thing, although at the same time I also understand that story isn't exactly this game's priority, and something like that would definitely need a lot more time than this game is able to allow for that kind of thing. So when you get right down to it, maybe just having that left up to the imagination is better in a way. It doesn't mean it's satisfying, but I don't really know if there's anything else they could have done with it. As for the Wind Waker story, there is a little more to that, but not much. It introduces Tetra and the King to the story, but Toon Link isn't even a part of it. He's nowhere to be found for some reason, and it doesn't explain why. He's not even a part of that plot, probably because I guess it would be redundant to have two Links. It's also really short. I expected it to be. You only spend a couple levels in some different locations. They do reuse some of the original areas, but they work perfectly fine. There's a reason for them. I do like what they did in the story. I do kind of just wish there was a little more to it. The final boss was pretty cool. It was a nice change. Phantom Ganon was a little bit more interesting to fight than regular Ganon, simply because he wasn't just using all the items at the appropriate time. There was a little bit more technique to fighting him. Plus, during the fight, they give you access to 4 characters at the same time, and you know how much I love that. I was also pleased to find out that I was correct in the adventure maps from the Wii U being on this one. I was a little worried about that at first because I wasn't unlocking any of them. I only fairly recently got the Wind Waker one, and I essentially did it by accident. I haven't unlocked any of the others yet. I don't really know how. I'm probably going to look that up because I want to get that as soon as possible. As for the new characters themselves, though, I want to talk about them a little bit, just because, naturally, they're a big addition, so opinions are sort of relevant to the topic. I'd say my least favorite is Tetra. Honestly, she's just kind of I don't really care for the way she plays at all, and there really isn't all that much to connect her to the original game. Like, you could just as easily put some completely unrelated original character over her, and it would be pretty much the same. So, when has Tetra ever used a gun? When has a gun ever appeared in a Zelda game? It's a water gun, technically. But, it's still kind of off. Not off, that's not the word I'm looking for. It's not very well connected to the source, which I really think they could have done a little bit better job with. She does use the light arrows, that's a nice touch. She has a Triforce move that's really similar to Zelda's, which, makes sense, all things considered. But overall, I just don't really like the way her moveset is that much. She's not bad. Sure as hell isn't Agatha, let's agree with that one. But she's just doesn't really work for me that well. Surprisingly, the one that I expected to hate the most was Toon Link, but he is probably he's in the middle, essentially. The way he plays is essentially a sillier version of Link's sword, which I think works perfectly fine. He's actually really good, I've noticed. He can do damage pretty quickly, he has really long reach, especially for those stubby little arms, the spin attacks all over the place. He's really good at maneuvering. You can essentially leap over someone whenever you want. That's a really nice feature. He's good at air juggling. Just solid. Really solid character. Next up would be the King. I expected to not like him very much, but he does have some decent power to his moves. He still has the most annoying voice ever, just going the entire thing. That's all he does. It's a pain in the ass. It's really baffling how they get some fantastic replacements for voices in this game, and yet some of them are just... there really aren't any that are bad. That's pretty much the only one, is the King. Some are saying that Medley's voice is kind of annoying, and I can understand where they're coming from with that. So, that's really neither here nor there. The King is alright. I do like his strong attack will make him move faster for a while. I think that makes a lot of sense, because, he's the King of Red Lions. He's a boat, which I still love that's actually a thing. You can play as a boat in Hyrule Warriors. That's fantastic. It's glorious. I love it. He's almost like a joke character, except cool. He works. He's better than Agatha, again. Let's agree on that one. So, the King is cool. Next up would be Skull Kid. I expected him to be my favorite, but I'm putting him just under second favorite. I really like his moves. He has a lot of really cool attacks. He's really quick. He hits hard. His laser move can cover so much area, because if you just sit still, he just kind of does like a 45-degree angle in front of him, maybe like a 90-degree angle or something like that. But you can spin him around while that's going, so you can make him spin all the way around and do a full 360-degree turn with that laser. It is beastly. And there's an attack where he just throws bombs of dark energy. He throws like 10 of them really quickly. That can do a lot of damage to bosses, just weak points in general. His last strong attack is really powerful. He kicks the moon like a soccer ball, which is weird, but there it is. It's certainly something. So, Skull Kid is really cool. I like his moves, but star player is Linkle. Linkle is OP. She is so OP. She is so fast and strong, which in a game like this, having those two things together is absurdly overpowered. And her moves, she can do so much damage so quickly in a wide area. She can attack in pretty much any direction at any given time. Her special attack is really quick, does some decent damage. Her meter attack, whatever you would call that thing, that can do a lot of damage to weak points, especially on captains and other characters. Not so much on bosses, but So, Linkle, super good, really powerful, really fun to use. Very flashy, too. I like that. There's a lot of motion and little details to her moves. I like that you can put the hood up or down, that's a nice touch. The way she sort of reloads the crossbow with like a little hop while the combo ends and everything, that's a nice detail. I mean, all of the characters have really nice details. That's sort of just my hierarchy for them, for how I personally think they stack up. I'm really interested to see what we have coming next. I mean, we can pretty safely agree what the characters from this point are going to be. I mean, there are pretty much only a couple that are a bit up in the air. Like, I think there's a Link to the Past one, isn't there? I know there's Link's Awakening. No, it's not Link to the Past. You know what? Let's speculate for a little while. Why not? That could be fun. For, the Link's Awakening map, I mean, we have Marin coming. She'll be interesting, but no one really knows how she'll play. Although I am a little concerned that we'll have a third harp player, which really seems redundant. And I imagine she'll probably be wind-based too, because, windfish and everything. And ooh, either wind or water. It'll be one of those two, I guarantee it. Hopefully they can do something with her moves. We'll see. Next, the Phantom Hourglass Spirit Tracks one. Weapon for Toon Link. I am calling it Spirit Train. That's gonna be it. You watch. I'm calling it right now. Spirit Train. And it will be glorious. Although it could also be Phantom Zelda. As much as I want the Spirit Train to be a weapon, I do think it would be really cool to have the new weapon for Toon Link be Spirit Zelda. And like a character combo move, sort of like Link with the Great Fairy or Link with Epona. Where essentially you have moves that are relatively similar to Toon Link's normal moveset, but almost works kind of like the Dominion Rod, where there's also this other entity that's sort of following you and mimicking your moves and everything. I think that would be really cool. It has a lot of potential, I think. As for the new character, I don't really know much about those games to say. Everyone seems to be saying Linebeck. I mean, I don't know anything about the guy, so I can't really weigh in on that at all. Honestly, from looking at the guy and what little things I know about him, I don't really think he would fit. But I also would have said that about Marin and Medley, so, what do I know? As for the Link Between Worlds one, I think we know what's going on there. That's gonna be Ravio and Yuga. That's pretty clear. It writes itself, really. The movesets already basically exist with not so much with Ravio, but he's really the only character specific to that game that would really work to any degree, aside from Yuga also. Some would argue Hilda, but we already have the Hilda costume, and she probably would just work either like Sia or Zelda, so there probably wouldn't really be that much potential there. Ravio, I imagine, his moves would essentially be sort of like a combination of Tingle, like swinging around the rupee bag and just his silly little movements and everything. Who am I thinking of? Probably like a combination of Tingle and Twily Midna, in that she utilizes a bunch of different things in her moves. Like, all of her strong attacks are some different kind of object that's a reference to her game. I imagine Ravio will work very similarly. He'll come with all of the different items that he can sell. Like, one move will use the Fire Rod, another will be the Tornado Rod, one will be the Hook Shot, one will be the Hammer, that sort of thing. Yuga will most likely be pretty self-explanatory. He'll probably work just like he does in the games. Maybe his special attack will be transforming into Yuga Ganon, or Yu-Ganon as I call him, which is very silly and dumb, and it really shouldn't be called that, but I call it that anyway. So I am very curious as to where this whole batch of DLC is going to go. I do like that there are so many unlockables in this game. Like, in the first screen of the Great Sea map, which, mind you can only see a grid of squares that's maybe like 7 by 4 big. It's stupidly tiny. It makes navigating a pain in the ass, but there's literally no reason for that. That's something I'm still salty about. That's dumb. A completely pointless choice. But in the first screen, like I said, as soon as you open the Great Sea map, there are, I think, 8 or 9 costumes immediately visible. You can't get them all, That's sort of a problem with the Great Sea map. They are really stingy with the items, and if you want to get some, you have to progress through a level without getting the reward because you can't unlock it yet. That's annoying. I don't like that, but I mean, it's fine, I guess. The levels are decently short and they aren't too difficult, so it's not that big of a problem. Unlocking the character weapons is really difficult so far. I mean, I have access to most of the first adventure map, and I'm still not even finding any level 2 weapons. From what I can tell, they seem to be in the Great Sea map and probably in Master Quest, because that's going to be a thing also once I finally unlock it. It is a little difficult going through the game with only the level 1 weapons for everybody, but at the same time the game is still rebalanced. That's something I was very pleased to find out. The game is rebalanced, which I was afraid of that. Especially since the new level cap I think is back down to 99, but they'll probably increase it with every new DLC just like with the original game. In addition, I have noticed some strange things though, like even though the amount of enemies on screen is reduced, to get an A rank you do still need to kill 1200 on adventure maps, but I think you can also take more damage, because I know for sure in the original the maximum was 4000 damage. Now I have gotten almost like 6,000 on some levels and still gotten an A rank. So I don't know if that's just to specific levels, or if that's just sort of an across-the-board change they made, but I guess just it seems to be a little more lenient, essentially, which is good. Oh, right, I can't believe I didn't mention this sooner. My fairy is the most random, completely unnecessary mode they could have possibly added to this game, and I do not care. I really like it. I expected to find this mode sort of just like a neat little side thing, but I wouldn't really care. But surprisingly, it's really good. It's you need to get fairies, trust me on this one. I said that Linkle is OP earlier. Nothing is as OP as the fairies. I'll get back to that in a second. Unlocking the different things for them is a little confusing. Like, food for them to feed them and level them up is really rare to come by, which I sort of expected. It takes a while, and for a long time we're going to have only one fairy, so that one will be like 10 or 15 levels higher than any other ones you get, so getting them caught up will be kind of a problem. I have also noticed that there are multiple copies of the different outfits, which actually I don't mind, because even though like the colors will be roughly the same and everything, they are different elements, like different outfits and everything have different elements attributed to them, and you can find slight color variants of the different outfits, and they'll have different attributes to them. That's pretty nice. Being able to dress up the fairies and everything, that's a nice little addition. Again, it's the most random, pointless mode, but I am completely on board. However, you need fairies, because they are the most broken, overpowered thing in any game I have ever played. Because there's such thing as like overpowered things in many, many other games, like the Scarab gun in Halo 2. That just fires an infinite deadly beam that blows anything up in one shot and is so powerful and so enormous that it can actually crash the game. There are cheat codes that give you unlimited resources in games. They make you do things faster, they make you stronger, they make you unable to die. But the fairies are so overpowered, you can skip almost a half of a level with good timing. Like I said in the original video, the difference between the number of kills you get in the original and 3DS is pretty significant. A move that would take out 80 or 90 on the console takes out about 30 if you're lucky on 3DS. The game is a little bit rebalanced for that, for the most part, so that's not really a huge issue. However, the fairy attack. Essentially, you can sacrifice your magic to release an elemental move based on what fairy you have with you. These fairy attacks, depending on your positioning, how many enemies are in a general area, where you are exactly in the level, and just the fairy's level itself, even at a very low level, the fairy attack, the bomb, whatever you call it, I like to call it the nuke, it can do anywhere from about 30 kills to 500. I have literally been able to kill 500 enemies in 1 second because of this move. It is that powerful. And in levels where you need to, kill 400 enemies before your opponent. You can imagine how powerful that is. And if it's a level that gives you multiple magic jars, you can just run around dropping nukes, carpet bombing the battlefield with elemental magic. And it is the most OP thing I have ever seen. It is amazing how powerful it is. Trust me on this, as soon as you get the game, go into adventure mode, go to the right. There will be a fairy like 1 or 2 spaces over. Get it. And train that bitch up. Feed her, stuff her face full of everything you get. You will thank me. Now, despite everything I've been saying so far, I also must reiterate another point that I said. I still don't think this needed to be 3DS exclusive content. Because all this stuff is really fun, but I'm just thinking about how much more fun it would be if I was able to use the gamepad, because despite how much people complain about it, I love the thing. It's one of my favorite controllers right next to like the GameCube controller. And, well, it also doesn't help that I hate the 3DS circle pad. I mean, the new 3DS is better with it. Not by too much, but it is better. All of these new, really cool features and really new options and DLC coming. Hyrule Warriors just in general doesn't strike me as a portable game. Like when you play it, like I said, levels are going to last on average 10 minutes at a time. And as a handheld game, that doesn't necessarily work out that well. I mean, it depends on where you're playing it naturally. I mean, like some people play their 3DS on a plane and play it the whole time. I mean, that sort of situation works. But the thing with Hyrule Warriors is it's a game that's structured in a way that expects you to play for hours at a time. It's not the sort of thing that you pop open, play for 20 minutes to half an hour, and then finish. I mean, naturally you can, and people obviously will and do, but it's designed to be something that you sit down with for a while. Like a good chunk of the afternoon or evening or morning whenever you play it, you go nuts, have a great time, and then you stop for a while. That's why it doesn't really strike me as a portable game. It's more suited to a console. And again, I completely retract what I said about the original, about it being unnecessary. Not about the original, about the port, about it being unnecessary. All that, I take it all back. Gladly, I completely take it all back. Everything I said, pretty much. Except for what I've already said. Don't want to repeat myself again. But overall, while it is a significant improvement, that's an important thing to mention. It is an improvement. It is better in terms of its features and its balance. However, these features could have just been put on the Wii U. And even if they had just done both, I fully understand that would more than probably triple the amount of work. Quadruple, quintuple even. I fully understand that, but in a perfect world where labor isn't an issue, money isn't an issue, being able to have all of this extra content and all these extra features, being able to switch characters, the better balance, the new content, I mean the new characters are coming, but I mean all the adventure maps, all the costumes, all of everything. Being able to play that on the Wii U in HD with the gamepad instead of the 3DS, I think works better for the game. And again, that doesn't devalue the 3DS one. I completely enjoy it. I really do. It is really fun. However, I still think the option would have been a better choice in terms of satisfying the fans. But even then, I do also realize this. The 3DS version was made in response to fans wanting it. I understand that now. I realize that. But I still think that in terms of satisfying everyone, having it available for both would make more sense. And again, in a perfect world where that's viable. It really isn't when you get right down to it. I completely get that. And for what it's worth, it does add a little extra incentive to get a 3DS. Because, like I said, I literally bought a new 3DS to play this game. It's sitting on my desk. I played it. As a side note, this is a really random thing, but I ordered a new 3DS on a Friday, and it arrived on the next Tuesday. It was either Tuesday or Wednesday. Either way, it was like 3 or 4 days, and they weren't even all business days. I don't even know how that's possible. I've been waiting for a Bowser plush since January 22nd. I mean, for God's sake. Maybe that's just a thing with electronics. They ship them immediately. I don't know. That's not important. I'm getting off topic. Hyrule Warriors Legends. How is it on its own? On its own, as a standalone product, without any DLC or anything, it has a lot of content. Almost everything from the original. Almost. Not quite everything. No challenge mode, no boss mode, none of that, unfortunately, because I liked those modes. They were really cool. As a standalone game, it's really good. It's really solid. It's just as good, if not better, than the original. It is actually better. It features, well, it's better if you have the new 3DS. If you're playing it on the original, when you consider just how much slower it's going, which can definitely annoy people, and you can understand why, it's about the same. But on new 3DS, it's a better gameplay experience because of all the things they added to it. They didn't necessarily change it, but they added, and that's the important thing. It's expanded with the owl statues, the new items, the new areas, the new stories, the new characters, the new features, new functions. It's a better experience. I completely eat my words on that. I still love the original, and I still wish the stuff was on there. It's not. I can deal with that. I have learned my lesson after last time. On its own, completely solid. As a port, I still don't think it needed to be exclusive. As just a 3DS game that you may be considering to get if you have a new 3DS and you're remotely interested, get it. I highly recommend it because, like I said, when all is said and done, it's still Hyrule Warriors. It is one of my favorite games ever made. It is glorious to play, so if you're interested in it, give it a go. I mean, even if you don't have a new 3DS, you won't really miss out on too much. It'll just be a little slower. Okay, it'll be a lot slower. I mean, quite frankly, it'll be really slow. But if that doesn't bother you, then, I mean, well, it won't bother you. So, that's entirely up to you, whether or not you're annoyed by that, whether or not you think it's worth it. My initial impressions of Legends were incorrect. I thought it was completely unnecessary. I was really bitter about the new content not coming to the version that I had and wanted, but I gave it a chance and was happy to be wrong, thrilled to be wrong. I have never been so glad to be wrong. That's a great thing. I think that really speaks to the quality of this game, because it completely turned me around. I was angry at it at first. I was really upset, more than I had any right to be. I completely concede that. I was annoyed by it. Maybe not angry or anything. I was annoyed. But then I gave it a try. I like it. I really like it. It's really, really good. I want that to be clear. No matter what I say, no matter what it sounds like I say, Legends is really good. I love it. It's a very solid port. Much better than I thought it had any right to be. You know what? I might actually do a follow-up to this video once all of the DLC comes out, or maybe even individually. I guess that would kind of depend on what you guys want. Overall, I would really like to know what you guys think of this video. This is the first sort of opinion-based video I've ever done. I mean, the first decent one that's not just being whiny, because, I mean, I completely agree. That original video was just whining. There's really no ifs, ands, or buts about it. I would like to do more of these. I might even do like discussions on Nintendo Directs and everything. Actually, back during, okay, I'm just going to say this right now. I'm done on the topic of Hyrule Warriors Legends right now. I'm just going to keep talking a little bit because I want to just sort of talk to my viewers a little bit. Back during the trailer that would eventually become the Bayonetta reveal during the Nintendo Direct, I actually filmed a pre-show discussion, prediction segment, a reaction segment, and then an aftermath discussion. But I didn't actually end up posting it, partially because I ended up actually losing the footage, and also because it was just bad video. It was way too dark to even see anything, so there wasn't really anything I could do about that. But I would like to do something like that again in the future. If more Nintendo Directs show up or anything, and just have it as like a combination prediction discussion, reaction segment, then aftermath discussion. So it's like all three rolled into one. It would be cut together, so it takes out the fat, so to say. I don't know. Also, if you're wondering why I haven't been posting any other videos recently, it's because I'm actually working on one right now, and it has a ridiculously long script, and it's very complicated to get through, so it's going to take a while. That's pretty much what I'm going to be devoting most of my energy to, so you're going to have to be a little patient on that one. It's another Zelda theory video. It's about Majora's Mask, so, you know, that might be a little interesting. You'll have to wait for that, though, because I don't want to say anything about it to spoil it, but I will say, I even caught myself off guard with that one. You'll see what I mean when the video's actually done. Wow, I've been talking for 50 minutes. Oh my god. That's the mark of a good game, when you can just talk about it and ramble forever. So yeah, that's my thoughts on Legends. A couple questions posed to you guys as listed earlier. If you want to see more like this, let me know. If you have thoughts on the game, let me know that also. Just generally use comments to make comments. That's how they work. That's what they're there for. You can do it. I believe in you. And, well, I guess that's it. I will see you guys later. I don't know why I said it that way. But anyway, I'm done now. I must say goodbye. And I'm going to get back to work on that video because it's going to take a very long time to do. Goodbye.